Hi, welcome to the Rose at Home channel. I'm Rose, I am at home, and I am so incredibly glad that you have decided to join me today when I share some of the books that I consider hidden gems. Books that don't have a lot of reviews on Goodreads, that don't get talked about here on Booktube, but that I think are just amazing. And if you like those genres, I think you'd really like these books. The first thing, and I've talked about these before, are the Titanshade series by Dan Stout. Right now there are 3. It does work as a trilogy, but absolutely can, and I really hope he does, expand the series into more books because I love them. I love the detectives. I love the world. The series is set in a place called Titan, which is a pretty much frozen land, and they use some geothermal heating and things like that. He gets into all of that in the world building without ever spoon feeding you exposition, which is one of the many things that I absolutely love about this series. So for the first book, we have a detective named Carter who is put with a Mullen, he's human, he is put with a Mullen-Compy new detective named Jax. And they are working to solve the murder of a third species, a diplomat who is a squib. There's so much going on. There's all of this political intrigue, definitely police procedural, but we've got the sci-fi with the other planet, with the other species. We've got a little bit of fantasy because there is a touch of magic in this world. It's so good. So if you like police procedurals, you would really enjoy this. It's a very different twist of what you're used to. If you like sci-fi, this is again going to be a different twist because we've got the police procedural mystery element to it. I can't imagine anyone who liked either of those genres wouldn't like this series, and I strongly suggest it. It's definitely a hidden gem in the book world. Okay, I'm gonna change gears now to YA, and I've got 2 picks that are 2 of my top YA books, but that I almost never hear anyone talk about. The first one is called The Grief Keeper, and it is by Alexandra Villasante. It is the story of 17-year-old Marisol, who has been put on a hit list in her home country of El Salvador. She has upset a drug cartel in her town, and they want to murder her. They have already killed her older brother, and they want to traffic her younger sister, who is 14, 15 years old in this book. And so to save not just herself, but mostly to save her sister, she sets out to walk from El Salvador all the way up to the border, cross the border, and get into the United States. She believes as they're going that they have someone, once they seek refugee status, they have Americans who are going to sponsor them. And so all they have to do is get across. Because of everything that's happening, she gets separated from her mother, so it's the 2 teenage girls on their own. When they get here, this happens very early, so it's not really spoilery, they learn very quickly that it's not going to go the way that they had thought. But Marisol, the older sister, is offered an opportunity. If she can be part of a experiment to test out a new technology and prove that she is of worth to the American people in that way, they will let her and her sister stay. And that's how she can keep her sister safe. It's a beautiful book. It's so much about the family. It is about immigration. It is about the value of humans. I can't say enough good things. It is absolutely beautiful. I don't know how everybody hasn't been screaming from the rooftops about this book since it came out, but I absolutely love it. I strongly suggest it for anyone. It's absolutely beautiful and such a wonderful story. It will stick with you. I've read it, it's been a few years now since I've read it, and it still sticks with me to this day. I love this book. I love these characters, and I cannot more strongly suggest that you give it a shot. The other Wi-Fi book I want to talk about is Jess Rothenberg's The Kingdom. This is so good, and the only thing I'm mad at about with this book is that where it ends, it sets itself up for a sequel. It sets itself up to be at minimum a duology, if not more, and there's not another book. This is the last thing that she's published. So I'm really hoping that the next book will come. But The Kingdom is another sci-fi YA, and it is basically our world, but there is a set of theme parks, a magical place, but the people who are the princesses, who are the workers who do the performances and are the beautiful girls in the fancy dresses, they are kind of androids who are programmed to always be friendly and always be happy and always do as they're told and that kind of thing. What happens is you have our main character who is one of these androids who has started having feelings beyond her programming when a coworker of hers is killed. For the first time, they put one of these android workers on trial for possibly committing a murder. It is so good. There's so many questions, and it's done in a really thoughtful way. It's written in a manner where it's very easy to understand and to kind of get into. I so love this book. I recommend it all the time, and I don't understand why it hasn't got tens, if not hundreds of thousands of reads on Goodreads. I want to say it's at like 2,000 or something like that, 2,000 or 3,000 maybe. It's really low, and I don't understand why, because it is so good, and I really, really, really hope that the follow-up happens, because I want to know. I really want to know what happens next. The next I want to talk about is a mystery slash suspense series, and it is Paige Sheldon's Thin Ice. The next one is Cold Wind. There are actually 5 in this series. I am behind, and I'm kicking myself because I love these. I'm not going to talk about the future ones because I don't want to spoil anything. But Thin Ice is the story of Beth, who is a thriller writer who gets a fan who becomes obsessed, and she ends up getting kidnapped. That happens all before the story starts, so that's kind of exposition. She's held for 3 days, and she manages to escape. So after getting away, she decides that she needs to kind of literally get away. So she goes to Alaska, and she moves into this very small town. It's very hard to reach, and she's trying to kind of get her own bearings, get back to herself, heal her wounds from everything that has happened to her. And of course, when she gets there, there is a murder that happens there. She starts feeling like she's being stalked. Has the murder that's happened there have something to do with what happened to her? It all kind of, how does it tie together? Does it tie together? Is she in danger? It's so good. It's so good. It's really incredibly well crafted. It was such a page turner from beginning to end. I absolutely loved it. I don't know why more people aren't talking about this series. It's wonderful. If you like suspense thriller mysteries, if you like kind of cozy, but it's got that whole like, no, my protagonist is in danger as well, you would absolutely positively 100% love these. I, again, can't recommend them highly enough. And the last 2 things I want to talk about are more literary fiction. And again, they're 2. One of them is a prize winner and all of that. So it's not that it doesn't have readers. It's just I never hear anyone on Booktube ever talk about it. So I decided to pull that one. But first, this is Chelsea Bieker's Godshot. I see a lot of people who ask for cult books, and this absolutely fits. Although if you crawled into the world of the book and asked the people in it, they would absolutely positively tell you they are not in a cult, but yes, they are. So they are in a very small town in, I believe, California, and there is a really severe drought that's going on, and a preacher comes in who takes over the local church and basically convinces them that if they are godly enough and do all of the things he says, because of course God talks only to him, that they will eventually be able to get rain. And so as it goes on, he gets more and more controlling of all of the people. Just watching that whole kind of like frog in a pot kind of thing. If he'd have come in at the start with all of these rules and demands, everyone would have run him out of town on a rail. But it starts so slow, and it builds and it builds and it builds, and it's like the people don't even realize what's happening to them and what they're going through. But she does. Our protagonist, who is 14-year-old Lacey May, she starts to see that there's something wrong here. This isn't right. It's so good. It's so well done. And if you like literary literary writing and you like books that deal with cults, you'll like this. I really think you'll like this a lot. So give this one a read. And finally, this one was nominated for the Women's Prize a few years ago. It was on the short list. It does have 20,000 I think ratings on Goodreads. So there are people who have read it, but I never hear it talked about on Booktube, and I couldn't not. This is Claire Fuller's Unsettled Ground. She has some newer things since then. I really need to get them because I absolutely love the way she writes. It's beautiful. So this is the story of a set of twins, male and female. They are 50 years old and they have spent their entire lives living at home with their mother. At the very beginning of this book, their mother passes. And so it is, what are these twins going to do now? How are they going to navigate a world that they really haven't had to this point? They've been sheltered their whole lives, not through any kind of coercion or force, but they were just kept out of the world until this point. And so how did they make their way now? And it's beautiful. It's a quiet book. It's not a big plot driven anything. It's not going to be like page turnery in that way. You're not like, oh my God, they're in peril. It's not that. It's just this beautifully quiet story about these people who are trying to make their way in the world for the first time and what all they have to go through and deal with. And if you like literary fiction, if you like quiet books, if you like, I'm not saying that there's no plot, because there is. I wouldn't even call it a walking around book because there is more plot than that. I would hazard to say a coming of age, if you're coming of age at 50 years old. If you haven't read it and you like those quiet things and you like that type of writing, absolutely, positively get a hold of this. It is so good. I also, about a month or so back, did a video for the book recommendations tag, and a few of these were mentioned in there, but I mentioned some other ones. If you want more recommendations from me, check out this video over here. Also hit the subscribe button so that you can see all of my videos as they're coming up. And in the meantime, I hope you have an absolutely amazing week, and I hope you get to read some absolutely wonderful books. Bye, y'all.